If you're looking for an episode sharing the atmosphere of Kubecon Amsterdam, getting news from projects, then this episode is for you. Welcome to Is It Observable? Today's episode is a bit special. This episode is dedicated to the conference Kubecon Amsterdam. If you paid attention, I recently delivered one episode dedicated to the conference. But because I made so much interviews and I recorded so much atmosphere of the conference, basically I can produce a second episode. So if you're looking for the second part with more interviews, then this episode is perfect for you. If you enjoyed today's content, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. So follow me in Amsterdam.
I'm working for CSD, a secure company based in San Francisco, and the creator of Falco. Falco now is a CNCF project. We donated the project in 2017, and basically Falco is a runtime security project. The idea behind is to inject a driver inside your kernel, either a kernel module, either an eBPF prop, both work, and we collect syscalls, and with a set of rules, we are able to detect suspicious behaviors, strange behaviors that may happen in your pod, in your Kubernetes clusters.
Are you doing any part of the pod that should be considered to be replaced, or?
We are not in image scanning. We have a different paradigm for our philosophy. Basically, we think whatever you do, it's really hard to protect to remove every flaws, to protect you from every CVEs. But at the end, the attackers are always trying the same thing. They are trying to create a reverse shell. They are trying to exfiltrate data. They are trying to start a crypto miner, that kind of stuff. So with the collections of the syscall, we are able to detect all these events, whatever the method that has been used to gain access and do those bad things.
So you mentioned DDoS attacks. So if Falco detects a DDoS attack, you're basically blocking the traffic coming in?
Not a DDoS attack, a reverse shell or crypto miner which starts inside your pod, we detect that.
Okay. And could you maybe, if I want to use it in a Kubernetes environment, Falco requires to deploy an operator? What's the requirement?
Right now we don't have an operator. Maybe in the next months we'll have something. We are working on that with Luca and others. Right now the easiest way to deploy Falco inside a Kubernetes cluster, whatever the flavor, whatever the cloud provider, is to use our official mchart. Technically, the mchart will start the deployment. Technically, it's a daemon set. It will deploy a daemon set because as Falco relies on the kernel, we need one Falco instance per node. The kernels are not yet distributed. It will be in the future, but not right now. So a daemon set will be deployed, and for that, the mchart uses an init container to inject the kernel module or the eBPF prod inside the kernel. And then Falco will run in the user's LAN space without any privileges. It doesn't need that anymore, and it will automatically download the new rules and detect suspicious events and strange behaviors.
So there's like a control plane that could be deployed in Kubernetes that basically where you define your rules?
We don't have any graphical interface for the rules,
okay,
but all rules are now packaged as OCI packages. So if you are using a Docker registry, not just Docker, but any registry that relies on OCI standard, you can own and store your own rules and plugins. We have also a plugin system to instance the number of inputs. At the origin, we were only able to collect syscalls, but now we can also collect any kind of stream of events you may have. For example, we collect the audit logs from the control plane, and for the managed clusters, as we don't have direct access to the control plane, we can collect these audit logs from Stackdriver, from CloudWatch logs or else, and ingest them into Falco, parse the events, and trigger alerts based on what happened at the control plane level. If someone tried to delete a pod in the Cube system namespace, for example, we detect that. If someone attached his own terminal to a pod, to have a shell inside a pod, we can detect that kind of stuff. And then with the syscalls, we are able to see what happened directly inside the control. Yeah.
We see here alerts.
Yeah.
So how is the alerts been exposed? Do you have Prometheus exporters where you will use the alert manager to do that? Do you use any standard of the observability like open telemetry to expose also data?
So just Falco itself, it had just few outputs. We can send the events into the standard out, into file, a program, a pipe, something, syslog of course because it's a classic, and also HTTP. And with HTTP, you are able to forward all these events to a proxy called Falco Cyclic. And Falco Cyclic basically is a connection between Falco and your ecosystem, your own infrastructure. Right now, Falco Cyclic has 52 different outputs. So you can forward the events in the same time to Slack to reach your team directly, to Loki or Elasticsearch for long-term storage, to a serverless or function as a service system, Lambda, Tecton, Argo Workflow, Knative, and of course we also have we expose metrics in Prometheus format and that kind of stuff. And you have also on-call systems. And the good things with this system is we are able to, for example, you can send all your events to Elasticsearch for data analysis, for statistics, and only the alerts with a priority above critical to Lambda, Knative, Google Functions to react. So we are able to close the cycle. You have the detection with Falco, the notification with Cyclic, and the reaction with the system you may have in your infrastructure for that.
Ken Hamric, founder of TraceTest, which is a trace-based testing tool that works with any open telemetry-based testing backend.
So you're here at Kubecon. I guess a lot of news or product updates has been built to have an announcement here.
Yes.
Do you have any news or any things to share?
Yes, I've got several things to share. The team's been super busy. One thing I'd like to show you today is the transaction, so the ability to chain multiple tests together to make a coherent flow.
So how does it work? Could you walk through how
Yeah. So I've got a transaction up right here showing the hotel store demo, which is Open Telemetry Group puts out. This has 4 different tests: getting recommended products, adding products to shopping cart, checking out the shopping cart. So through those 4 tests, when you run this transaction, it's moving through each of 4 tests. You can see variables are defined both for the environment, and then as we move through the test, part of getting a recommended product, we set a product variable. So we set an ID for the product ID that the future tests are going to use. So you can chain tests together as you go through it.
So how does it work? You have like a sort of a regex or a regular expression that you apply to extract the product ID?
Yeah, through the, when you want to use a variable in a test, you'll see the syntax of $, and brackets, and like environment or variable or attribute, and the name of the variable.
Okay.
So you can also have at the top, I'm currently using this environment. If you look at environments, you can set what the variables are, such as host name. So you can build a test with a variable and then deploy it in multiple environments, and the host name can change. You just select the environment you want to use at the time.
And so it means that if I run it into, say I'm running TraceTest into a Kubernetes environment with the YAML file, configuration file,
yes.
I can already also preset those as environment variables, and those will be also taken when I execute them.
Absolutely. And when you move to QA, you just change the environment file, and all your tests will continue to work.
And I also heard recently that you had a K6 integration.
Yeah, really excited about the K6. That group from Grafana were awesome to work with. I can show you a little example of it if you'd like. Okay, so I'm going to show three things. First, the K6 test. So this is the K6 test. If we scroll up, we see that we're importing the K6 TraceTest integration that one of our developers, Oscar, worked on a couple months ago. Pretty awesome. This is very much a standard K6 test. We're gonna, with a couple exceptions, we include TraceTest, we tell how to connect to the TraceTest server, but then we tell what tests we want to run after K6 finishes. What TraceTest test do we want to run? So K6 is great at running and checking kind of a black box test, testing that the response is right, etc. What TraceTest can do is check deep inside the system. So this is including a TraceTest test. If we flip over, we can see the assertions TraceTest is doing as part of this test. So when you run it, you get a normal K6 run. It does all its processing, but then it hands trace IDs to TraceTest, and the TraceTest test process after that. And that checks inside of the test. If I actually pull up one of these.
So at the end you're generating load. Inside of that, there is some trace test running to figure out if the load that you apply is not actually impacting the transaction.
Yes, and if you had multiple, if you had a distributed system with like a message bus in the middle, your top service may work just fine, but your load may kill one of these bottom services. TraceTest can test against those bottom systems on the other side of a message bus.
And otherwise, do you have any other updates that you have?
Yeah, just a small one. We've been really working on our ability to add new tracing backends. So some of the ones we added were Datadog. Elastic was added this quarter, but one we recently added was AWS X-Ray. So if you're using AWS X-Ray, you can TraceTest fully works with it out of the box. You just configure a couple items. There's a test connection button at the bottom. You click it, make sure it works, and you're ready to go.
So I'm Eli, co-founder and CEO of Helios, and I'm here presenting you today the first observability platform tailored for developers.
And you operate mainly any environment, specifically in Kubernetes? Is there completely everything?
So we operate in every environment. Obviously, if you're using Kubernetes, the deployment is really easy, but we can be everywhere. It doesn't matter where you run your code, we know how to run it.
So could you show us a bit how it works?
Yeah, definitely. So this is the Helios platform. I'm now doing you a demo. And the data that you see here is coming from the demo app that we build, kind of like a financial app like PayPal or Venmo, where it gives the user the option to transfer money between people. So what you get to see on the left-hand side is a full live service catalog, meaning you get to see all of your microservices, all of your serverless functions. So for example, the API service, you get to drill down into all of the different APIs. So we provide you with a live dynamic API catalog. So for each one of those services, we provide you with all the APIs that this service triggered or that this service uses. So for example, the API service, one of the main flow is the deposit flow. So we provide you with visibility into all of the traces behind this flow. So you can drill down into specific traces, and when things break, you get to see what caused it. Meaning, let's drill down into the deposit flow. What you see here is the API service and all of the related calls to this service. You see how the data flows from the API service to your Kafka messages, all the way to your other microservices, all the way even to your database. And it provides you with all the data that you need, including the payloads, meaning all the requests, bodies, and headers that were associated with this request. And the motivation behind it is when you are, as a developer, wake up in the middle of the night to do an on-call and you're trying to understand where the problem is coming from, you go into Helios and you actually get full visibility onto all of the data, meaning you get to see the entire flow and how it was chained together, including, for example, data with your logs, data that we collect from the traces, and we combine it together to facilitate and to make it easier on you to run your production monitoring tools.
So, and how do you collect those information? So you rely on OpenTelemetry on how?
Yeah, exactly. So we are natively relying on OpenTelemetry, meaning that either you adopt the Helios SDK and then you gain out-of-the-box capabilities of OpenTelemetry, or if you already have OpenTelemetry, you can just send the data to our collector and we can take it from there.
So you have your own distro of collectors, or?
Yeah, we have our own distro of SDK and we have our own collector that both of them are the same as OpenTelemetry. So it's completely in alignment with OpenTelemetry.
So I heard from the market that you are also doing some testing. So
yes.
It means that if there's a defect or an issue, you have the options to then prepare a test case.
Exactly. So as I said before, we are targeting to help you as a developer in all of the stages of your development. We started with monitoring your production, but we also gave you capabilities. Once you find an issue, you can actually automatically create a test out of this trace. And let's see how it looks like. So imagine this is again the same deposit flow as I showed you before. And now, as we can see, the bug that we showed before was already fixed. And now we want to make sure that this bug won't happen again. So obviously, testing this flow just from the API service from the beginning won't be good enough. What you would want to do is to actually make sure that the sophisticated flow, that the data that you send to your third-party API is being tested as expected. So you can actually press on the create test button, and then you gain visibility into all of the different nodes during the test, and you can actually validate that the call to strike was executed as expected, or you can validate that the call to SES, the simple email service of Amazon, is executed as expected. And you can see that those calls are calls deep inside your architecture, so it gives you actually the capability to generate really sophisticated test tests. And then when you click on the generate test button, you see how the system automatically generated the test code for you, either in Python or in Jest or in Mocha, and we keep adding more languages all the time. And you can see what actually triggered the test. This is the flow of the test, and you can see the data that we collected automatically in automatic assertion that our system generated. And from here, you can just copy paste and run it.
And so it means that you can either do pure QA activities, but also you can do synthetic tests out of your...
Exactly. So you can do pure QA activities. You can actually do synthetic monitoring out of that. You connect it to your existing synthetic monitoring solution, and it gives you the capability to monitor not only the beginning of your flows, but actually very complex and asynchronous flows.
Okay. And so, then you have the option. Do you also, Helios, have the ability to schedule those synthetics?
So those are exciting things we are working on right now. So go into the website, gethelios.dev. Thank you very much. We have a free version for everyone. We have a free plan for everyone.
Sonja, I'm a group product manager at Tyke. Tyke is an open source API gateway and also API management platform.
So, if I want to take advantage of Tyke, so how are there specific requirements or specific things that I need to deploy? How is the experience if I want to start using Tyke?
Okay, so if you want to start using Tyke, just go to GitHub. We have our gateway, it's open source, and you can deploy it in Kubernetes using our Helm charts. And then you can decide how to operate it. So we have an operator, Kubernetes operator, to play the different API definition.
So is it the operator what we would do is like you inject sidecars, or how do you do?
No, we don't have sidecars. So sidecars are more for service mesh, and gateway is more the central things that control the access to your API. So it's kind of a different level. So service mesh is more service-to-service communication, and at some point you want to expose access to API to other teams or to external consumer that want to consume your APIs. And this is where API Gateway is super practical, because you want to be able to secure it, to observe it, your APIs, you want to govern it, or maybe you have other services using different technology in gRPC, Kafka, and you want to expose them as REST, as GraphQL, and we do this conversion layer for you.
That's great. And you mentioned something that brings a lot of interest. You said observe. So how do you observe it?
Yes, right now we have our own solution. It's an open source project. It's called Timecodes, and it enables you to stream your data, so metrics or logs, to different formats, like for Elastic, for Prometheus. So it's own integration, but we are moving to OpenTelemetry. And tomorrow I'm doing a talk on OpenTelemetry and GraphQL and our learnings with our gateway, so you're welcome to join.
So it means that this component could be in the future potentially replaced by a collector?
Exactly, so that's something that we are looking into, because of course now every time we add a new integration, we have to maintain it, support it, test it, and that's something that potentially OpenTelemetry collector will be able to support.
And when you do, for example, you mentioned you can translate the protocol. So it means, I guess, you also expose from your solution as well data. So I say, data transformation into error, or
yeah, exactly. So we have also middleware, either our own middleware or custom middleware. So you can write your own plugins, middleware with Go or different languages, and plug them into the API lifecycle. So you had a call, and maybe you have a service that you want to expose, but it's not returning a good error code, and you want to make sure that for the developer experience, you have a better experience, better error code, so you can use a middleware to rewrite some component of the transform the response, the request, add header, remove header if they contain any information that you don't want to expose.
Okay, so you add in extra security on top of the
yeah, and you can do some transformation, add things, remove things. So it's really to help teams make their API consumable by other teams or external company. At some point, if you want to publish APIs and have APIs as product that you want to monetize, you need to make sure that they're secure and that the developer experience is great for the people paying for your APIs.
So when I'm building my API, I may want to test them. So do you also provide some support or features that will make your test easier?
Yeah, so you can start with mock. So we have a mock middleware. So if your teams are not yet ready or you want to use it for test, you can go directly to the mock response.
If I want to start using it, how can I have access to all those information?
Tike.io.
The main maintainers of the Kubescape CNCF sandbox project.
So how long is Kubescape been around on the market?
Kubescape has been around in the market for around 1.5 years. We started out as a scanner based on the NSA Kubernetes hardening guidelines that came out in 2018.
And what is it about? What is it doing?
So basically it scans Kubernetes, and across the board, we do misconfiguration scanning and we do vulnerability scanning, but that's just kind of what we do. The problem we solve is that DevOps tend to be overloaded, and looking at security is just another list of things that they have to do, and they don't enjoy it. So what we're trying to do is reduce the friction around security and try to avoid context switching when possible. which is why we have many, many plugins from Kubescape into other places in order to allow the DevOps to not leave where it is that they're working and still be security aware.
As an open source product, I guess you are pushing alerts when it comes to a problem of vulnerability or misconfiguration. So how do you push that? Do you write into a file or do you expose some endpoints where you can see those vulnerabilities?
So basically our scans can be done either manually and then you get it as you run it. You get the report online, either in CLI or in the Armo UI, which is free till 10 nodes. Or you can do periodic or action-based testing, and then it goes into a JSON file, and it will and then it's available for you to review.
If you are here at Kubecon, I guess there are updates or anything that has been happening on the project. Do you have anything to share?
We have a really exciting new feature that we introduced this week, and it is called relevancy. The idea, again, is in order to make DevOps people's life easier and keep them security aware, what we want to do is allow them to easily prioritize the work. Because typically when you do a security scan for vulnerabilities, you will get a very, very long list of vulnerabilities and you really don't know where to start. So typically you'll start from criticality and, I don't know, ABC order, numerical, by date, whatever, but that's not useful that's not actually actionable to reduce your attack surface. So what we do with our relevancy, we use eBPF in order to scan the kernel of the Linux as the container is loaded. We scan it for a pre-configured amount of time. You can choose your own. And we see what actually gets loaded into memory and what software packages are actually used. Then we scan that modified SBOM in order to give you a list of the vulnerabilities of the packages that are actually running. So then you may even come to a point where from a list of hundreds, you get, 10. And then you know what it is exactly you have to start with and how you get the most bang for your buck, so to speak, in order to solve a vulnerability that will actually reduce your attack surface.
I'm Matthias. I'm one of the main maintainers of Kubescape. And let me show you a little bit what the product is about. So I have previously installed Kubescape CLI on my laptop. It's just one curl command. It's very easy to download.
So the CLI will interact with one of the components that are sitting in Kubernetes directly?
No, it can be used as a standalone scanner. So I'm going to show you how I can scan like local YAML files against the frameworks and see how Kubescape can like fix my YAMLs and suggest some pull requests for it.
Okay.
So if you just launch Kubescape scan, it will scan your YAMLs for like all frameworks and get a vulnerability score. You can see for the different NSA and MITRE, for instance, a risk value. And now, if I take the same scan but save it as JSON, I get the same output, but I have also a JSON file that I can use to fix my files. So if I just run this other command, it detects some vulnerabilities.
So at the end, before deploying anything, you can make sure that all the deployment files are safe and respecting our security policies.
Yes.
is Maël, and I work on the Certmanager project as a maintainer, and I'm employed by JetStack.
What are we able to achieve with the help of the Certmanager?
So yeah, a common use case, for example, if you're using the cluster API operator or any other operator, is to use the CA injector. So yeah, that's probably what you have been using. But you can go beyond that. Usually, the other big use case for Certmanager is to use Let's Encrypt. So people will set their certificate resource in Kubernetes, create a certificate resource in Kubernetes, and Certmanager will ask Let's Encrypt for a certificate and Certmanager will put it in a secret. And then usually you mount it into a pod and use it from your application or from your ingress controller.
So, for example, if I want to do the ingress, what would be the journey to configure that?
So you would have an ingress, for example, this one here. This manifest shows the typical ingress, and I have my application with the domain example.example.com, which is a bit weird, but anyways, I'm deploying the demo application QAuth, and what I've done is I've set the ingress class annotation because I have an ingress controller.
Yeah.
What I want is that I want Nginx to pick up my Certmanager Let's Encrypt issued certificates and serve my application. So what I've done is I added the host example.example.com here in the TLS field. And the second thing I did was to set the secret name. And the last thing I do is to set this annotation here, the annotation in gray, which tells Certmanager that this ingress should be receiving a certificate from Let's Encrypt. And then behind the scene, what Certmanager will do is create a certificate for you and rotate it when it expires, or before it expires. And it will create a whole bunch of things to do the challenge, the HPO1 challenge from Let's Encrypt.
So at the end, with the help of the Certmanager, I can make sure that my cluster is secure. I mean, the communication between components of my cluster are secured using TLS.
So yeah, that's another. Right now we were talking about the
ingress
case of Certmanager, and the other big use case is for MTLS. So the usual thing that people do is have a private CA in the form of HashiCorp Vault, or that could be Step CA or any other private CA, and they would use Certmanager to create. Certmanager has a bunch of plugins that plug into these issuers, to these private CAs, and that allows Certmanager to issue certificates from the CA. So you can, by creating a certificate resource, which is not shown on the screen right now, by creating a certificate resource, you can request certificates that can be used in your pod.
We are still with 3.0 beta, and we are hoping that by Kubecon North America we'll have 3.0 GA going live, and with all the plan is to make it more developer friendly. So as of now, I mean, chaos engineering was seen more for the SREs and DevOps engineers, but we want Litmus to be seen as something for the developers, like specifically for the developers. So you'll see more, enhancements with the UI, the resource optimization. I mean, resources will be used in a better way. But the second thing is also SDK. As I spoke about developer friendliness, so right now our SDK, although it's pretty much up there with people being able to write experiments on Python and Go and Ansible, but our focus is on making the SDK better so that people can write, engineers can write their own experiments and then come back and contribute it to the hub itself. Lastly, as you can see, we are also having some new experiments added. That's the Spring Boot experiment.
This is a normal e-commerce website where we have multiple microservices like front-end service, our cards, and different kind of services deployed on the Kubernetes cluster. And we are targeting this one of the pods, right? And let's go to the kiosk platform. So this is the kiosk platform, which is having all the information right away. And we ran some of the experiment before the recording, and you can see the list of kiosk scenario runs, the total number of delegates, and here we have the hub. Right. Hub is the kind of a marketplace where we store the experiments. So this is one of the predefined kiosk hub, which Litmus maintainers are maintaining it, and you can add your custom hubs also. So for example, if you see this custom hub, we have created one scenario for boutique application. The boutique application, basically we want to delete the pod of the card service, and we want to see the impact, what will be the impact once we delete the card, right? And during the kiosk, what will happen, and what will happen with the probes also. Right, I'll just quickly go to the kiosk scenarios, and you can see we have the button to schedule the scenario. I'll select the self agent that the target for the target application, and next. So I have to select the pod delete for the card service. So I'll select the hub, the Kubecon EU23, and I'll select the scenario. The scenario is pod delete, boutique card pod delete. So I'll select this one. Next. These are some of the predefined information like the kiosk scenario name, description, and this is the place where you can configure your experiment, right? And once you click here, you can see all the information. Like you want to change the namespace, for example, you want to target another namespace, you can also do that. Our agents automatically detects all the resources in your cluster. And these are some of the pre-filled information. We just ignored this for the target application. And here we have the probes. So probes are basically the pluggable checks you want to add to the experiment, and this pluggable checks will be triggered during the kiosk, on kiosk, continuously, or you can add it beginning of the kiosk or end of the kiosk. So you can see we have few probes, right? Website latency check, card service availability, and card port check. Right, so these the different kind of modes. Like you can see, it's first is the on kiosk mode. This probe will be triggered only on during the kiosk duration, and this will be continuously running the probe from the start during the kiosk till the end. And this is the edge mode. Edge mode is basically during the start of the experiment we check, and during the end of the experiment we check. Right, and if you see the details like what it is doing, right? I'll just firstly quickly go to that HTTP probe. And HTTP probe is basically checking this endpoint, and if it is checking, if it is not giving 200 status code, it will fail. So we are going to target these 3 probes basically. These 3 probes will determine if the application is resilient or not. Right. And now we just go to the next step. So here a few of the information, like I just want to decrease the duration just to show the impact very quickly. I can go next. So this is the place where we define the resiliency score. We go next, and we have option to schedule it now or schedule it later, or you can run the experiment in the cron format. Here you go, we schedule the experiment, and we want to see the real-time status, right? I'll just click here, show the scenario, and it is running. So till it run, I'll just quickly go to the Grafana dashboard. You were mentioning about the matrices, how we can check, right? So this is a normal Grafana dashboard. Grafana and Prometheus we did, and this is basically checking the uptime of that particular application. And you can see everything is 100, everything is normal, green, everything is fine. The QPS is also fine. You can see all the services are running fine, right? And we just ran the experiment, and it is running. And we'll see the impact, what we will do with that application, right? So let's wait for some time. We'll get the, yeah, here you go. You can see the annotation, it got started. Like the experiment has been started. And you can see the annotation, red color annotation, and we'll just quickly see the application. It's got failed, internal server error. That means your application is faulty, maybe high availability is not supported with the application, or anything. It can be anything, right? So developer has to fix it.
it for today's episode related to the Kubecon Amsterdam. As you've seen, lots of people. I think it's the biggest Kubecon Europe I've never seen so far. Very interesting. A lot of great solutions. As you can see, a lot of CNCF project has shared their solution, did some demonstration. Very excited to see a lot of security solutions, observability solutions, and of course, all the TraceTest is going on the right direction. It's very exciting. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you do, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. So see you soon for another episode. See you. Bye.